Good evening and welcome to tonight's Transgender Day of Remembrance. My name is Eloise Brooke and I'm the Health and Communications Manager at the New South Wales Gender Centre. I'd like to start by thanking everyone who is joining us tonight and for those who made this evening possible, including Sydney World Pride, SWAP and the City of Sydney. In a moment, Chantel Martin from SWAP will give us an acknowledgement of country and talk about one of our community members who has passed, Ella Passion Brown. I will be talking briefly about one of the greats of Australian transgender liberation, Ada Griffin, and reading a letter from the Lord Mayor, Clover Moore, recognising Ada's contribution to our community. I will then be presenting a short film remembering a young member of our community named Sammy Duckworth. This year, we made the difficult decision of doing an online Trans Day of Remembrance, just as we did in 2020. I want to acknowledge that we as a community need the opportunity to come together in our time of grief, as well as our times of celebration. Months ago, in the middle of COVID-19 lockdown, we made plans to hold our remembrance online. And we are very hopeful that next year we will be able to have the opportunity to stand and mourn together as we have for so many years before. Just to let you know, you can leave any comments in the chat box. And if you want to share anything for or about remembrance, this is the place to do it. If during tonight's digital remembrance you feel upset or that you might need support, you can call Lifeline on 13 11 14, that's 13 11 14, or Q Life on 1800 184 527. I would now like to welcome Chantel Martin for our acknowledgement of country and for her to say a few words about Ella Passion Brown.
Hi everyone. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the Gadigal peoples of the Eora Nation, the traditional custodians of the land on which we gather here today, and their continued connections to land, sea, and community. We pay our respects to their elders past and present, and extend that respect to the continuation of cultural, spiritual, and educational practices of all Australian Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples today. I would like to acknowledge all of our trans sisters and brothers who have passed away due to violence and the unacceptable discrimination, harassment, and persecution that our communities face. I'm Chantel Martin, and I'm from the Sex Workers Outreach Project, SWAP. I would especially like to say a few warm and heartfelt words in memory of a dear trans sister who recently passed away. My dear sister, Miss Ella Magdalene Passion Brown, who unfortunately was one of many of our trans sisters who experienced hardship, but as with most of our sisters, she did the best she could given her circumstances. Ella had a beautiful, kind and caring nature, and although she led a very private life, she was just like most of our trans sisters who wanted to reach out and seek love and friendship. Although Ella kept to herself most of the time, she always thought of others. Her life is a reminder to us all that when we lose a beautiful dear sister, we lose someone who belongs to our community. A life so beautifully lived deserves to be remembered. You are missed, beautiful dear Ella, and your memory will live on in those who knew, loved, and cared for you. To all my trans sisters and brothers out there in the world, I wish you all the best. Be safe, and I love you all.
At its inception, Transgender Day of Remembrance has been about remembering those members of our community that we have lost to violence. We have observed our Day of Sadness for 22 years now, but an important part of our remembrance in Australia is acknowledging all of those that we have lost across the year. We lose our community to violence in Australia, but we also lose community in Australia due to forgetting. This year, we lost Adi Griffin. Adi was for many years a pivotal figure in transgender liberation in Sydney and Australia. There are a number of vitally important rights that have been bequeathed to us, not because politicians or our allies saw that our community needed help. No, there are a number of vitally important rights around anti-discrimination, passport and birth certificate reform that members of our community fought tooth and nail for years to achieve. One of those fighters was Adi Griffin, who passed away in September. Here is a letter that another of our pioneers, Nori, received from Sydney's Lord Mayor on learning of the passing of Adi Griffin. This is what the Lord Mayor wrote. Dear Nori, Vale Adi Griffin, I was saddened to learn of the passing of Adi. I will remember Adi's involvement in developing the Anti-Discrimination Amendment Bill, which I introduced to Parliament in November 1994. I also remember Adi and others pursuing reforms for trans people following the 1995 New South Wales election, achieving success in mid-1996. Adi and the Transgender Liberation Coalition continued to make significant gains following law reform in New South Wales. I share in your loss. 10 weeks ago, we lost a young trans person named Samantha Duckworth. Tonight, I would like to present Sammy's story as told by her mother, Selena. Sammy's story needs only one introduction. That is that all of the footage and photography used in the film was created by Sammy herself. She was quite simply an amazing artist and one whose story reflects the lives of so many young and trans and gender diverse children and young people in Australia.
Soon after Sammy officially told me she was transgender and was changing her name to Samantha, I gave her a silver bracelet. I had her new name, Samantha, engraved on one side and Love Mum, May 2018, on the other side. She was very touched and wore it almost all the time. This is the third bracelet. She had 2 more bracelets. This last one I started wearing after she died. One day she told her dad she was going out for a walk and that she had written him a letter to read while she was out. In this letter, she described her feelings of dysphoria and not wanting to live if she couldn't live as a girl. Sammy was very private throughout her transition. She took things very slowly and dressed in a neutral way as she waited for the hormones to start taking effect. I was elated to have a daughter to share girly things with. Even though she didn't live with me full time, she would come over for sleepovers and dinner sometimes, or just visit the cats and me. After a couple of years transitioning, with full support from family and friends, Sammy started to experience feelings of anxiety and was having panic attacks. Sammy found that alcohol was the thing that helped her get over her anxiety and insomnia, and she started to eat less and less. She became increasingly reclusive and started having trouble sleeping. She wasn't keeping in touch with her friends much, but had learnt how to ride a scooter. She adored the freedom she had on her scooter. One day she was distraught because she'd lost her bracelet while out riding, so I had another one made straight away. She wore this one almost all the time too. After she's turned 20, Sammy started to refuse to go to family gatherings, like birthday celebrations and Christmas. It seemed as though there was some kind of shift in her mental state. She became extremely thin, and for me, communication with her was sporadic. I asked her over all the time, and she would pop in sometimes for a short visit. We would have a game of cards, play with the cats, and drink tea. One day, her second bracelet fell off, and she accidentally rode over it with her scooter. It was flattened and badly scratched. Again, she was very upset. I bought her a third one with the same engraving. She wore this one less often, as she was afraid of losing it. In December of 2019, Sammy disappeared. As we were discussing places she might have gone, the police rang to say they'd found her red scooter and that Sammy was sitting up on the headland. She had rung Lifeline and told them she was having suicidal thoughts. She was taken to hospital, assessed, and went home to her father's in the early morning. For the next couple of years, Sammy lived quietly, trying to combat the anxiety and depression, and we had a few lovely get-togethers. Sammy often seemed happy, and I was overjoyed to have so much time in her company. This year, I had a text from Sammy asking me if I could pick her up from hospital. She had just had some tests done. I wasn't told the reason for her hospital visit, but I guessed it was because she was starting to appear jaundiced and was probably feeling quite unwell. We talked about her upcoming birthday and what she wanted for presents. She said she was craving my special lemon syrup cake, so I promised I'd make it for her. Time flew past. We didn't talk again. Monday, the 30th of August, I was driving home, and just at our driveway when I received a call from John. And all he could say was, "Sammy's died." My world crumbled and stopped at that moment. Sammy had spoken to John in the morning and got herself a coffee. He went to work. At some point during that horrendous day, she was alone in her bedroom and suffered a fatal gastrointestinal bleed. She wasn't expecting anything like that to happen to her and to cause her to die. Her liver disease was moderate and she could have recovered. I believe she still thought she had time to do all that. She was an incredibly gifted filmmaker and photographer and poi artist. She practiced Hapkido. She was popular at school, making films and performing her Glow and Fireboy. She explored her creativity and made a beautiful film about her beloved northern beaches. When Sammy died, I found the scratched bracelet that had been run over and the newer one hanging on her jewellery stand. I started to wear the new one every day myself and would look at it often on my wrist. One morning, exactly 4 weeks after Sammy died, I noticed it had fallen off my wrist at some point during the day. I retraced all my steps throughout the whole day and walked the dog slowly on the same path we had walked that morning, but couldn't find it. I was devastated. My lovely neighbour suggested I put a post on Facebook, lost and found, and file a police report, which I did. Incredibly, 9 days later, there was a message from someone on Facebook. "Samantha, I found your bracelet," with a photo of it. I couldn't believe my eyes. It was hers. I contacted the woman and she asked me to tell her what was engraved on the back. She had found it under some leaves shining in the sun beneath a tree on the route I had taken early that one morning, 9 days ago, with our dog. She said she normally never walks that way and was so happy to be able to have it returned to me, especially when I told her of how much it meant to me. All I can think is that Sammy had to have guided it back to me. So I have since had a jeweller polish up the scratched bracelet and had both clasps fixed so they can't come undone again. Both bracelets look beautiful. I now wear one of them every day.
And so our 2021 remembrance draws to a close. In a moment, we will end with the candlelight vigil and the song Hallelujah, sung by our talented GC staff member, Annika May. I'd like to invite you all to leave a candle emoji in the Zoom comments section if you can. I'd also like to thank Matt Atkinson, Selena McKern, Chantel Martin, Nori, Tanya Levin, Annika May, Robert Natman, Finn Borg, and Liz Seisman for helping to bring this remembrance this year. This year, on this night around the world, the transgender and gender diverse community is observing Trans Day of Remembrance. This year has been a tough one for all of us. COVID-19 has meant our community, already under load, has faced more hardship and adversity, more isolation and disadvantage. The media is never good, but this year it seems to have reached new lows. Culture wars globally have left us all feeling vulnerable and raw. I want to acknowledge how hard it has been, and I also want to acknowledge the strength, resilience, bravery, and determination of our community, our families, our young people, as well as the love and support of our allies. Tonight, especially, I want to encourage each and every one within our community to take care of yourselves, ourselves, and each other. Light a candle tonight. Add one to our chat section if you can. And I'd like to leave you with this as we mourn for our lost ones, including those whose names that we don't know, though we hold them close to our hearts. It takes just a little light to hold back a lot of darkness. Good night, and please take care.
a secret chord that David played and it pleased the Lord. You don't really care for music, do you? When it goes like this, the fourth, the fifth, the minor fall, the major lift, the baffled king composing, hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Well, your faith was strong, but you needed proof. You saw her bathing on the roof, her beauty in the moonlight overthrew ya. She tied you to a kitchen chair. She broke your throne and cut your hair, and from your lips she drew hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Baby, I've been here before. I've seen this room and I've watched the floor. I used to live alone before I knew ya. But I've seen your flag on the marble arch. Our love is not a victory march. It's a chord and it's a broken hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Maybe there's a God above, but all I've ever learned from love is how to shoot somebody who outdrew ya. It's not a cry that you hear at night.